Hello there, welcome to another video. This week our story from the Gospel Project and from the Scriptures is one that you're very familiar with probably. It is the story of Jesus feeding the 5,000, one of a few stories surrounding the life of Jesus that are recorded in all four Gospels. So you will find this story in Matthew, Mark, Luke, and in John. We're going to kind of focus in on the story in Luke, but it's a story you know, right? It's the story of Jesus teaching, and the crowd is listening to him, and they're into it, and they're loving it. And Jesus just keeps teaching, and he keeps teaching, and he keeps teaching, and the day gets later and later and later. And eventually it's dinner time. And the disciples are kind of urging Jesus, like, hey, we need to send these guys home. Like, we don't have they need to eat. We're kind of out in the middle of nowhere. Send them home. Let them get something to eat. We need to rest. That's kind of what they're wanting. And Jesus turns to the disciples and kind of freaks them out. He's like, hey, well, why don't you give them something to eat? And they're like, where do you expect us to get food? How do you expect us to pay for food for thousands of people? And then Jesus kind of is like, well, what food do you have? And so I guess they go out and they search, they ask some people, and they find one little boy who's basically got the equivalent of like a really big sack lunch. He's got like 5 loaves of bread and a couple of fish. And they're like, hey, like, this is what we found, Jesus. Like, what do you want to do? And so Jesus takes the food from the boy and tells the disciples to kind of get the crowd to sit down in rows and in groups. And he prays a prayer out loud, asking God to bless the food and bless the meal. And then it says that he breaks the bread and that they start passing it out. And people keep getting food, and the food is kind of filtered through the whole crowd, and everybody gets enough to eat. And what the scriptures actually tell us is that at the end of it, they don't want to be wasteful, and so when everybody's kind of leaving, or at least done eating, they gather up multiple baskets of leftovers. And so it's this incredible miracle of Jesus taking what should not have been enough to feed that many people and made it do exponentially more than it should have done. And there's a really awesome history of this in Scripture. I'm reminded of the story of, I'm going to say Elijah. No, it's Elisha. And he it's in the middle of this famine in the Old Testament. And Elisha's a prophet, and he goes to this woman, he's like, hey, like, can you kind of provide some food for me? And she's like, I've barely got enough food for me and my kid. Like, I'm about to like make a meal so we can die. And he's like, well, make me this first, and then and watch what God will do. And then, like, for the entire famine, like, this one thing of like oil and flour like sustains this woman and her son and the prophet. So God has this history of taking little things, like little amounts of stuff, and doing abundantly more with it. And so I think that's the miracle itself is really cool, because it's, you know, if we think about, you know, just what I was taught in seminary and things, was like that 5,000 number is the men. They would have counted the men, and so you could probably likely double or triple that number if you're including women and children. So we're just talking about a massive amount of people, a tiny amount of food, and God does something incredible. I think the bigger lesson that the miracle teaches us is that God can do abundantly more with whatever it is we have to bring him. Whatever it is we have to offer him, God can do more with that. And so one of the things I love is in the Jesus Storybook Bible that we do with our kids, our kind of our family devotion time every night. When we get to this story, there's this cool little moment. I doubt it happened, but it's just fun to imagine where the boy like hands Jesus the bread and the fish, and it says that Jesus leans down and is like, watch. And then miracle happens, right? But this is a story that kids love, that adults love, because it just shows, you know, again, Jesus' power over nature and power to do incredible things. But it's an instructive moment too, right? It's an instructive moment of like, the church and believers should be taking care of the physical needs of people, right? That the disciples kind of like send them away, and just like, no, like, it's our responsibility to take care of these people. And then again, the big idea of, or the bigger idea of just like, God can take the little you bring and can do amazing things with it. And so that was the story for this week. With your little kids, we were going to focus on just the miracle itself. Like, Jesus miraculously took this little amount of food and did big things with it. And with your students, we're going to focus on the idea of this is a example moment from Jesus of how we should be seeking to provide for the physical needs of other people, right? That's a mission that the church should always be behind, is providing for those who are in need, but especially as families are struggling and jobs are being lost and all this kind of stuff during this time, that should be a thing that we're intentional about doing as individuals, as families, as a church body. And then also just to remember, that God can take that little bit and do way more with it. So anyway, I hope you're having a good week. I hope you are joining us for worship at some point this morning, whether it's online or in person. And until I get to see you again, either in person or in the next video, God bless.